So I'm back, and my friend Pat's band Never Surfed has a new song out called Figure It Out, a song that I loved working on. I produced this and mixed it as well. Ooh, who is she? She's mixing? Ooh la la. And today I'm going to walk you through how I produced it. Let's dig in. So let's take a look at the demo. This is the demo that Pat sent over, and it's him and his buddy just kind of jamming in his house. So just fiddling around, and they start to figure out like where this is going. Keep listening. As I always do, I made a reference playlist, and I had Coconut Records on there, and I had Tom Petty on there, and which I'm sure you'll hear that influence as we go through this track. I have Jenny Lewis on there. Actually, I'm repping Rilo Kiley today, so unsurprising that would be a reference. But I use those references, and I kind of let that set the direction for the production. So let's dig in. Okay, so first I started with some programmed drums. Let's have a listen to that. So pretty basic programmed drums here. I knew that we were going to have a real drummer on these songs, so I really didn't spend a lot of time getting the drums right, but you know, there are places where I added fills. You can kind of see some very simple fills just to like get a certain vibe, but like I said, I knew we were going to get rid of that. So pretty straightforward there. As we get a little further along into the chorus, this is what it sounds like. Got that good tambo and that good shaker layered on top of everything. So like pretty straightforward, but the snare, you know, ghost notes a little bouncy. The snare by itself, let's have a listen. So you can hear some of that bounciness. For this project, I had never really done live drums before on a project that I'm working on, so I really had to seek out a good gate situation, and when I landed on this silencer plugin, this thing was pretty awesome. It's letting just enough in, but yeah, I have it on the kick, I have it on the snare, I had it on the toms apparently, but I took it out, so yeah, just used it in there to taste. In terms of like the sort of mixing elements, it would have sounded awesome just the live tracks, the raw tracks that were sent. I did very little mixing, where, I mean, you see a bunch of plugins here, but just cutting, you know, like below 30 primarily, leaving some in the 50 and 60 range for the kick drum, ducking out a little bit here around 90 for the bass, boosting at the kind of like snare fundamental area, and then a little bit more top end here. Whoops. We don't need that to be that wide. We've got Then I have like a Pultec EQ, boosting a little at 500. Looks like no dipping happening. Boosting at 4K. 4K. Ooh, dry throat. Boosting a bit of 4K. So you can see some of the stuff going on here. Boosting around 100. Doing that Pultec trick, boosting and attenuating. So anyway, you get that vibe. I've got the distressor on here. I've got it on the nuke setting. Just go to town on it. Okay, I've got the flamingo verb, just doing a little bit of like trying to get a little room. So here's without. And I mean, like the live room already sounds good, but I added a little more space. Just kind of beefs it up a bit, widens it out a bit. Limiter and a stereo imager, make it, like I was saying, wider. So let's move to the bass. So much like the programmed drums, I programmed some bass as well. I often will play bass live, but in this case I programmed it using probably Prime, yeah, Prime bass, the Steady Rock preset, and it sounded a bit like this. Very simple, just following the chord changes. Now, Blake, the guy that played the bass live, has this really awesome walk-up part in the chorus, and he did such a great job on the bass here. So let's listen to some of that. I'm not always a fan of a ton of movement, either on bass or with drums, but in this case, it's like just the sweetest sauce to put on that bass part. Couple things from a mixing perspective, EQing, taking out around the 540 area, making space for guitars, boosting a little bit of the top end attack, around 13. I'm using the Kickstart plugin, the Nicky Romero, I guess is probably how you pronounce it. Using Kickstart to duck the bass under the kick drum a bit. Also using the Pultec on this. I just used the low end fresh air setting. I might have tweaked this a little bit, I don't totally remember, but just use that preset. And then another distressor. I bought distressor like just before doing this, and I put it on everything. I was obsessed. I'm also sending out, so this is a cool little trick. I don't remember who I learned this from, but I'm sending the bass to an aux track where I'm taking out basically all of the low end and then and putting another compressor on it, but it's allowing me to like have a little bit more control over the high end frequencies of the bass, and it just kind of like pops nicer. I'll play it off first. It's really warm and still fairly bouncy, but with it on, it's a bit more bite. And I think it works better in the mix. So the drums and the bass combined. So that's that. Keys, there's not a ton going on keys. The rest of the EP I put, I think, more keys on every track, but I really just have this I got the Universal Audio Electra 88, kind of like their Rhodes thing. I have it frozen right now, so it doesn't take up extra CPU. But yeah, I've got that. I've got some reverb on it. I've got another compressor on it. But here's the part, fairly simple. So it's really just kind of adding some twinkly bits to the top end of this mix. Here's the 3 that we've soloed so far. So most everything that you've heard so far is pretty much right up the center. I've got a little bit of, I've got hi-hat and stuff going, maybe about 10 notches to the left as if I was a right-handed drummer. But this keys part, the bass part, the kick, the snare, all of that is right up the center. So now we're going to start hearing some of the parts that widen the song a little bit. So we're going to look at guitars. Let's just look at the overall bus here. So you can see I do these track stacks. I'm just kind of rolling up all of the parts into one group, essentially, and processing that group as a singular entity. So for the guitars, not really doing a ton, rolling off around 100, doing a little bit of a dip, about 150 again. Probably, I think I did that to make room for the bass and the snare. So just a little bit there, widening with the Waves S1, using decapitator here to fatten things up a bit, and then more distressor, because never enough distressor. So let's listen to each individual guitar. I like to name my guitars in such a way that I can't forget which guitars I use to play the part on. So like, for example, I have this named Strat middle pickup. So if I need to come back to it or retrack, it just makes it easier to remember what I did. So let's listen to this part. This is like my life is a highway moment. It's just very jangly, octavey noise. It's not meant to really be like that noticeable in the song, but I think it gives it a certain movement and feeling. It's feeling of like freedom and driving in a convertible with the top down and the wind is blowing through your hair and all of that, right? So that's that vibe. Next we've got the Strat, another Strat on the middle pickup. That to me is my like Tom Petty. Now this song in particular, you heard the demo, the way it was written does have a small similarity to Free Fallin'. But I really leaned into the Tom Petty thing, and this is just like, a little bit of drive. Actually, I'll show you what I used here. I love Guitar Rig. Any Guitar Rig fans out there, give me a comment or a like. But I just went with a lot of presets here, and everything came together really nicely with the guitars. This is the classic tremolo twang preset. I don't even know that I tweaked this. I maybe moved this a little bit more towards cabinet than room. So that's the setting here, but it's really just, if you were playing this song on an acoustic guitar and singing it, this is really the part that you'd play. Now we have the Strat bridge pickup part. And this is going to be also a Guitar Rig patch. This is the basic twang reverb. I also just felt like this thing sounded great. Really intentionally, the other part that I just played is mixed to the right. You see panned 26. This part's far left and played much higher on the fretboard. So, and like very different voicings. So the two of them together sound nice. And I really, with this song, I like could not get enough guitar. So this is the Les Paul, and I wanted it to be like sort of like gritty and beefy and like kind of the backbone of the guitar part. Again, like maybe not super heard, but definitely felt. You hear more of those like mid-range frequencies in this guitar. This setting is the classic rock and roll setting. Again, I don't know that I tweaked very much on it, so just using a lot of presets here. And then the Strat bridge part. That's all it is. Super simple and really, again, one of those things you're not going to hear even that much, but just keeps things moving when the big strums, the big rakes are happening. I've got some verse guitars in here as well that are a little different, so let's listen back to a couple of those. This is a preset that I made called Emotional Pop Guitar, but using the sort of twin reverb emulator, not using the spring, not using the RC24, not using ROM. There's a bunch of stuff that I turned off from this preset I made, apparently. Some compression, some EQ, some more EQ. And then I have this twinkly bit. And that's just kind of the lead guitar part in between choruses and verses, and just as sort of supporting Pat's lead vocal. So something that I skipped before is this other guitar lead. So Pat was going to play this live and we just like really didn't have time in the studio. So this is literally just a Contact. This is the Mint Melody plugin or preset, whatever you want to call it. And you can see I just played it MIDI, but this is the lead that you hear in the chorus. That's it. And that nice whole note delay. No, half note delay. So yeah, those are really all the guitars. There is a key change in the last chorus, so it's all the same stuff, but just played a step higher. So let's listen to what we have so far. Drums, bass, keys, guitar. Very cool, very groovy. It's such a classic sounding song. Okay, let's do BGVs, background vocals, before we do the leads. Background vocals, you can see, just like everything else, I'm processing on a bus. I've got distressor again, I've got a gate, and I'm sending to an instance of flamingo verb for these vocals. Now the vocals are interesting. Pat's got like, he can hit some high notes. So we tracked this remotely. I am in North Carolina. Pat is in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from. And so he worked out of Jim Stewart's studio there. And I tuned in from my home studio because I'm a remote producer, and that's kind of how it works. So unless you want to pay to send me to wherever you are, and then hey, I'm game. But so I watched Pat do this over Zoom, and I was so impressed that he got up on these as high as he did on this last chorus because of the key change. Even the lead vocal with the key change in a man's range is going to be challenging. I mean, he still hit it. So here are Pat's parts in that last chorus in terms of background vocals. That must come from his years of listening to the Beatles. I don't know how he gets up there. I had trouble getting up there. And I tune those with flex pitch, and I put a waves tuner on there. I like to use auto tune, but it just takes up so much space. So, and you can use it and bounce it down, whatever. But for this, I went with the waves. Now, Pat did those two harmonies, but I wanted it to feel a little bit fuller, so I actually went in and sang some harmonies of my own. So here are the low vocals I added. In my own way, I'll figure it out. In my own way. Simple. The mid-range vocals. I'll figure it out. In my own way, I'll figure it out. In my own way. And then last, I did the same harmony that Pat did, but I did it with like a really soft tone, which is what you're hearing in all of these, but especially on these high ones. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out in my own way. So that's the choir of Steph, and this is the choir of Steph plus Pat. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out. So that those are the background vocals. That's really the only thing that happens is the in the choruses. There's that kind of stacking that we like to do. And then last but not least, let's look at the lead vocal. So you know, Pat's got a really cool melody through the verses, and then that big moment in the chorus, that big sing-along anthemic thing. But let's listen to the lead vocals. Let's look at the processing. So I've got to compress, well, let's start with the EQ. Again, pulling him out maybe around just under 200, little dip at 660. I don't know, I must not have liked whatever was happening in that frequency, and then boosting him in some places. Got a distressor on the vocal mixing setting, got a Pultec on the 47. He didn't actually use a 47, he used a Chandler Red, but I just kind of played around with some things here. And then I added micro shift to just kind of, and I have my little preset here, the Steph Vox thicken. So I use that. And then I'm sending everything to a flamingo verb and sending everything to a delay as well. And that delay is doing an eighth note delay with a bit of feedback. So that's our starting point. Let's look at the lead vocal. Let's not. Let's look at the lead vocal.
Here I am, fighting for a life better than trying to survive. Slowly healing from my past. All that's left is learning to accept.
Pre-chorus.
All this time it's
Sorry, didn't mean to cut him off there.
all this time it's taking me. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out in my own.
Simple chorus, but again, gonna throw back to the Beatles. Simple is the secret ingredient. Simple is the way to do it. So we've got Pat's lead. We have some doubles.
All this time it's taking me. I'll figure it out.
And you can see I've got his lead around like minus 15, minus 12.
All this
Yeah, minus 12.
time it's taking me. I'll figure it out.
And then I've got his doubles coming in more like minus 21.
All this time it's taking me.
And it's, you know, I want those doubles to just be a thickener. I don't need them to be like super present. Certainly that's a style and a thing you can go for, but I was just wanting to beef up the part. Now something else we have in the second verse are these vocal throws. So let's listen to that.
Watch myself get lost from time to time, searching for the answers I can't find. Found out.
And then there's another one in the chorus.
I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
So pretty simple here. I've just got the Soundtoys Echo Boy on the Telray setting. I've always been a sucker for the sound of the Telray delay. So we're using it here, and again, it just gives it kind of like, I think, like a classic rock song feel to use that, but I'm using it sort of sparingly. It's just these moments where I'm doing these like delay throw kind of things with his vocal. So let's listen to the vocal leads with the background vocals.
I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out in my own way. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out in my own.
So like nice and thick and warm. Love it. So that's really it. That's the let's look at the kind of processing here. So I use a template that I built more often than not. This is maybe not exactly what my template is because I've changed it up a bit since this, but I am sending, so you can see bus 23 here is the like final mix, and then I'm sending bass, keys, guitar to an instrument mix, an instrument bus here. On that instrument bus, I've got Isotopes Neutron 4, and I'm just really using the unmask feature. And I'm unmasking against I'm sidechaining the vocal bus. So basically, when the vocals are in, this plugin will kind of duck the instrumentation around that vocal so that the vocal like has a lot of space. Speaking of the vocals, I'm sending those, both the background vocals and the leads, to their own vocal bus. I'm not really doing anything there. It's just to group them together, and sometimes I add processing there, but really just to group them together. And then I'm sending all of those, the instrument bus, the vocal bus, the like aux effects stuff. That is all gonna go to the mix. And on the mix, just 3 things here. I've got the Pultec Pro Legacy from Universal Audio on the master full and bright setting. It just like makes it sound big. I've got the Ozone Imager, again, get some width going there. And then I have the Ozone, I'm doing some like mid-side EQ. So really boosting the sides, what is this, almost 9,000 by 2.5 dB. And on the mids, I'm really doing nothing on the mids. I'm just boosting the sides. So not like a super complex production or mix, but that's kind of what I think makes it special. That's kind of the magic of it, is that it's not that complex. So let's listen to everything all together. This is Figure It Out by Never Surfed. This is not Figure It Out by Never Surfed. This is Figure It Out by Never Surfed.
This time it's